Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Security Space podcast. Today I'm joined by Amy Lemberger, and what we will be discussing is it's a bit of a dramatic title, the death of the full-time CISO. There's nothing malicious involved with it. It's more a little bit of, I suppose, a bit of marketing, bit of clickbait, but the ethos behind it is the fact that the role of the full-time CISO, it is becoming under question. It is changing, and the reason for that being is that the market is responding differently to the CISO, or is it? We will get into it in the next half an hour with Amy. But before we get into it, Amy, okay, just to give the audience a little bit of a background to yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nick, and thanks for having me. So I'm one of the CISOs that's come up the technical route. So I started doing forensics, computer forensics, way back when, talking 15 years ago. For the police, I then moved into, and I've focused on telco ever since. I've been telco incident response and doing kind of network investigations on one of the biggest networks in the world. And then most recently, I've been the CISO at Gamma. So I was their first CISO. And I suppose I've watched them double in size. I've watched us IPO. I've watched us do kind of 10 integrations. And I've watched from the sidelines this change in the CISO behavior, which is why I was really interested to talk to you about it. Plus, I mean, personally, I have decided to take the chance and become a part-time CISO myself. So I've been doing a fair amount of research.
Okay, perfect. So, even just a lot to unpick from what you said there, Amy. So, I suppose my first question to you is why? Why have you decided to come sort of like a VC, so part-time C? So, what is it that you're seeing where you're like, I'm going to make this jump now?
Um, I suppose it's the last few years. I work in a B2B organization. So I've watched how much both our supply chain up and downstream expect of other players. And when those other players are small, sometimes when we're working with them, they can struggle to understand what we're asking them. And I'm like, I'm sure there's a lot of small companies out there that don't necessarily understand what their enterprise customers expect from them, and that's losing them market share.
Yep.
So I think there's a value add for smaller companies. And then on top of that, I think as companies that are mid-size are getting more mature, they need someone who's going to be accountable and that is there for them. But the team might exist. There might be some strong head of securities. There might be a security conscious CTO. So I just see the shift in the role. Um, and on a personal note, I thoroughly enjoy the beginning bit, the transformation bit, where you're kind of going in and things aren't necessarily the green field, usually like more like brown muddy puddle. So combining those market shifts and me and my personality, I just thought I'd take a gamble and see whether the market shifts carry on going the way I thought they would.
Absolutely. And no, I absolutely echo the point of the role it is moving. And my previous life in recruitment, the two characters, the two demographics that I would have in my inbox the most are the graduates joining. And then also the top end of CISOs, because that's where it's the most difficult to get the roles. Obviously for numerous for different reasons, but it's the mid tier there's a lot of sort of fluidity around, and it's much easier to move around. But it's definitely the bottom and the top of the ladder where it's difficult. Um, I'm seeing a lot of sort of CISO contacts of mine that are like having to move into field CISO positions or even sort of CTO positions or maybe having to step down into like I say step down because it all depends on the organization, of course, but maybe into heads of again roles or even just like back down to sort of like infosec manager roles. I don't say that as a dig or anything like that on them job titles. It's just where we've all got bills to pay, we've all got mortgages to pay, and like yeah, like you say, we need to pick up a role, and if it's a stopgap in the interim, then so be it. Um, I suppose my first burning question to you, Amy, is why are we regressing? Would you say it's a regression, or would you just say that we've not fully understood it, or that security is becoming more integrated into a like technology risk. Why is the role changing?
I don't think I'd call it a regression. I actually think it's the next iteration.
Okay.
Um, and I say that because I did come in way back when. And back then, security was new, like cyber security. I mean, if you talk to true engineers, it sort of used to be embedded. So you could also argue we've come full circle. It used to just be part of the engineer's job. Then the ecosystem shifted. There was so many more attacks. There's so many new ways of doing it. There was new infrastructure, new ecosystems of tooling, and the rest of it. And therefore, we needed someone who's going to be that really strong senior advocate to the board, and really the person who could come in and design a strategy around it. But if you think about us not existing in a vacuum, I suppose, is that we've influenced a lot of people coming through their careers. We've influenced the next generation of CISOs, CTOs, and CIOs, and everything else, and that influences improve their knowledge. And as such, they have accepted the accountability and responsibility of some of the security parts. Um, and I think that that iteration is now going back around, that actually they now see it as part of embedded in their responsibilities. Um, so I don't see it as different. I see it as an iteration.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's a good point in the sense of yeah, it's kind of like the evolution of the role, and I suppose another example of that is what you were inferring at the start in terms of your choice of environment to go into, and it is these sorts of greenfield environments where it is a little bit of a mess, and therefore like cool, right, okay, I can fix this, and that's what security is, it's fixing, isn't it? At the end of the day, in its simplest terms, and. Um, I suppose that in itself of there is you can get to the end of the line in terms of maturity. Yes, you can stay there, and there is CISOs that are happy to sort of reap the rewards in what they built, and they're happy to be like work in an organization, take 3, 4, 5 years to build it from the ground up, and then sit on it. But I would say that I know more that are like, I've done it now. I want my next car crash to jump into, my next mess to go fix. So I suppose, yeah, the what you're saying around it being the an irritation of it, the evolution of it, it's kind of like the embodiment of that as well. It's kind of like the cultures run parallel with one another. Do you agree, or do you think I just
Yeah, and I think that there's quite a few more CISOs now acknowledging that there is an end state,
mm,
that you're not going to constantly get more budget, you're not going to constantly get more resources. And actually, when you hit that 2 to 3 to 4 year mark, unless there is something specific happening in the security world, you are just into BAU, maturing the configurations, maturing the things. And you're right, the same as different CTOs and different CIOs would I suppose flourish in different types of roles.
mm,
CISOs are no different.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I suppose just to add on a little bit around the culture as well. um, is more the other side of the fence, and I wanted to pick your brains on CISO's kind of being left hung out to dry in the sense of you constantly have to be in the boardroom fighting for budget, trying to explain the argument about security being a cost center, but also important, and it needs funds to as does any other vertical. But then being hung out to dry when an incident happens, and if you've not been given that budget, it's like, well, why has this breach happened? Where are we falling down? It's like, well, I've been trying to warn you for the last 12 months that we need to do X, Y, and Z, and if we don't, we're obviously at risk. Now, I'm not saying that them companies are the only ones that get hit. There is a lot of sort of high-profile organizations that spend a hell of a lot of money on security, and they still get hit. Nobody's foolproof. But what is your viewpoint on CISOs kind of being the one to be like, you are in the wrong here? I'm not saying that I'm the one accusing them, but it happens, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely happens. And I think that's where absolute transparency and talking in a language that your seniors understand matters. Because if you can show the narrative of the building pressure and the building, I suppose, risk, and you're very honest about that fact, yes, by the way, we've got a really mature organization, but we could still have an incident because somebody clicks on something.
Yep.
I think balancing that honesty and transparency with the right level of we're in this together.
Yep.
I think that's easier in a listed company, though. I will say that because corporate governance structures, I suppose, enable us to hold the board to account when it comes to corporate governance as much as the board hold us to account
Mm,
in management. I should imagine it's much harder when you've only got an exco and you don't have that board oversight and the listed status.
mm, mm. No, good point. And I suppose I wanted to move it to a little bit around how do organizations firstly know that they're ready for a CISO, and secondly, actually do a self-assessment in the sense of like, oh no, we actually just need a senior security engineer, for example. How would a company actually do that self-assessment then?
That is a really good question. And I, again, and this is where I think the whole thing is interesting. I don't think there will be a standard answer.
Okay.
It could be based on your vertical, it could be based on your supply chain, it could be based on what you're trying to achieve in your business strategy. So if I go with the vertical, you might suddenly realize that you are subject to new regulation. So, say a challenger bank suddenly has DORA to contend with. That might mean, okay, right, great, we need someone who's accountable.
Mm.
Um, for the supply chain, it might be okay. Well, suddenly I want to sell something to the public sector because I think I've got something that would really suit them. All right, well, they're going to expect someone who's based on the public sector frameworks in the UK. They're going to expect someone who's a senior accountable person. Um, and then based on business strategy, oh, okay, well, we want to scale to 5 times as much. We're going to get investment, or the investors expect us to have a CISO. So there'll be different levers and drivers forces depending on what you're trying to achieve as a business, I think.
Yeah. And to bring it back to what you were saying at the start, then around obviously your position around being part-time CISO, what sort of or when would an organization come to the solution that a part-time CISO is the right match for them?
They might not do it on their own. So what I'm envisaging, and I will be completely honest with anyone who's listening who is much more mature than I am about this, but what I'm envisaging is actually getting into a conversation with someone who you think you can help.
Mm,
Probably working at what that help looks like based on what they're trying to achieve. And
yep,
that might just be a day. That might not be more than that. It might be a couple of days here, a couple of days there.
yep,
You might not be called a formal fractional CISO straight away. It might be that, actually we'd like to spend some time with you as a consultant, just understanding whether we need a fractional CISO or not.
yep,
And then it evolved from there. I would be very surprised if someone absolutely knew they needed a fractional CISO and absolutely was ready to take it on. I envisage it being a very, I don't want to say slow burning, but relationship driven activity.
yeah. No, I agree with that. I do, and I suppose I want to see where what your opinion is of where the CISO role is going then in the next 18 to 24 months, because do you think that more people are going to follow yourself in terms of building out that maybe that that portfolio of companies that they work for? And is that a sustainable model, or is it a sense of like, no, there will always be a need for an in-house full-time CISO. It just again, it's all situational. What's your view on the next sort of 2, 3 years then?
I think for larger organizations, you'll still need one
Okay.
because if you think about scale, well, I've been in my current CISO position for 5 years.
Yeah.
4 years ago is when it really matured. So they couldn't have had a part-time CISO when they're going through a major transformation, doubling the size, going into the FTSE 250. That sort of company will probably always need someone full-time who's accountable for security.
Yeah.
FTSE 100 companies, absolutely, they'll be huge. Imagine I don't know, a BT or a Vodafone without a CISO. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, the middle part is going to be the more interesting part. And I've been surprised how many people I've spoken to previously who have actually made this jump over the last 6 months. And I don't think anyone's concerned about a lack of abundancy at the moment. Will that change in the next couple of years? Don't know. It might be that more smaller companies understand that they could actually have this on a day rate and as such use more of it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So you might see more of the lower level people coming up as the higher level handoff. Plus, it doesn't have to be for life. In the same way, my CISO, for want of a better word, career so far with Gamma was 5 years. I
Mhm.
could do this for 5 years and actually grow with one of the companies and stay with them.
Mm. Mm. Yeah,
Loads of opportunity and options.
absolutely. It's very fluid on both accounts, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a very sort of fluid way of working, and I think that's just where everything's going now. Like you say, remote. Look at remote work, for example. That's accelerated. Well, no, not accelerated, but it's changed. Yeah, no, it has accelerated. I'm going swings and roundabouts here, but it's changed the workforce in the sense of before companies that were 5 days a week in the office, you're getting the best talent within 30 miles of Manchester, for example. Now you can get talent all around the UK or even the world, which opens up talent forces in the likes of Brazil and Portugal, which were often overlooked and have they're quite young in their security workforce, but they've got great potential that is now getting tapped into. So it's gone a little bit sort of like global, and at the end of the day, security is just all about like who is the best, and not just security, but every company. So yeah, I completely agree that we've got to be fluid in that sense. What I wanted to ask you is a little bit of how does the role of a vCISO or part-time CISO, how do you compete with consultancies like Quorum, Bridewell, or even the big ones like IBM, KPMG, whatever it might be, who can like provide a consultant, for example, and how is that different to having a VC sort of come in as opposed to a security consultant? I suppose it links to that self-assessment question we were asking a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so I think some of it is interest. It's going to be, it's a prediction. It's not
Yep,
definite. But if you think about the type of companies they are,
yep,
they would swamp a small company, a 50 to 100 seat, a small to medium UK business.
yep,
Even working with them and understanding how to engage and how to use that resource and how to make that relationship work. If they haven't got a CISO, who's going to be that interface unless they've got an experienced CTO or someone used to working with that sort of relationship? They
yep,
can actually be quite involved in a positive way, and they're fantastic organizations. I've learned a lot from working with them. But it's very different. You need to manage them. It would be like giving a small to medium business a gardener and expecting them to be able to get loads of value out of them.
yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. And do you obviously with you being at Gamma, do you see the CISO of an MSSP being different to the CISO of an end user?
Explain what you mean. Give me some more context.
It's all about it's what you were saying there about that sort of that interest there, that sort of like you've got the blood in the game. With it being the CISO in a consultancy, you're dealing with lots of different sort of infrastructures, and
Yeah,
therefore, like you say, like with it being your end user, it's like it's your own house, isn't it? Do you know what I'm
yeah,
getting at there? So I'll pass back
yeah.
up.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, definitely. Also, I won't have a concept of a billable hour.
Yep,
It won't be a case of you've paid for these billable hours. It will be a case of have I provided like value for my clients? If anything, that's what I'm seeing with some other fractional CISOs I'm talking to is that they're struggling to understand when to stop.
okay,
When you're working for one organization, you've got one organization's, I suppose, value at heart. When you've got a few of them, it's like when do you down tools
yep,
and say enough is enough on what you're doing for them and delivery focused.
yeah,
Whereas when you're in a big consultancy or to your point, a company like that, um, it's all billable hours. It's all kind of you're putting your hours in and you're working for a gargantuan organization. So it's very different, I would say, culturally.
yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it? And not saying that it's a bad thing. It's just it's
No,
completely different, isn't it? 'Cause like you say, that if you're working for a consultancy, you constantly batter around like, well, 1 minute you've got network issue, next minute it's an audit. Da, 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 da. Whereas like you say, if it's the end user, it's a little bit more strategic. His plans will do X, then we'll do Y. That opens the door for Z. So yeah, it's again, it swings and roundabouts, and it links to what you've been saying throughout. It's situational, and it all depends on the organization, and it needs to be the right fit for them both. But if it is the right fit, it could work out perfectly for both parties. Um, My next question for you, mate, is a little bit in the sense of like how do organizations actually, because we focused a lot about on organizations sort of losing CISOs or actually shipping them off themselves, like and it's a short lifespan is a CISO. And there is a lot of movement of CISOs moving over to the vendor world and actually becoming field CISOs. Obviously, I know we spoke before the podcast, and you're working on salesmanship at the moment, and like everyone needs to be able to sell themselves, don't they? And as such, the vendor world obviously has a pull in the sense of the finances being able to offer. How does the end user and the MSSP world defend against talent being pulled away from them?
I'm not sure if you need to defend against it.
Okay.
If you see talent as a pipeline, if we were managing the pipeline, losing people to CTO roles or to field CISO roles or to anything, it wouldn't matter because you've got a succession plan in place.
Okay. Mm.
I think it's only if that becomes out of balance. And if you think about that balance in a sense of a field CISO or a vCISO that for a product is really a product evangelist,
Mm. Yeah.
and that product or that company has only got a set target or addressable market, and as such, they will have to have a certain number of engagements. And I think that will keep the balance right in the sense of if they don't exist, there's no need for a field CISO or a vCISO. So I think as everyone moves around, as long as the system moves as one, I think the talent moving off just makes room for other people.
Yeah. Which answers the
It's no
question
different than
really.
retirement. It's just
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah. Yeah. It keeps the funnel moving, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. I've not actually thought about that because, like you say, there's a lot of sort of. Yeah, I always use the analogy of a conveyor belt at the top of the ladder. You have to wait for a box to fall off before you can put another box on. And that's how it's a waiting game. It's not like these new roles are added, but yeah, if they're moving over to the vendor world, which is a different beast at this moment in time, then yeah, no, it's a good thing, isn't it? I've never thought about that. What sort of would your advice be then to someone that's starting out in the industry who has complete aim of climbing up all the ladder and being a CISO themselves? Someone that's starting in 2025 and you can perceive for where the role of the CISO is going. What would your advice be, Amy?
Um, Recognize the amount of uncertainty that exists.
Okay, elaborate on that then.
Because the industry as it is today is not the industry I worked in 5 years ago. It's not the industry I worked in 10 years ago, and it won't be the industry I'm working in 15 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, be able to respond to uncertainty and be able to recognize and grab opportunities.
Mm,
Most of my best learning and what's made me a competent director or CISO is saying yes to the right opportunity, not every opportunity, the right opportunity. And understanding what that would give me my like war chest of skills, for want of a better word.
mm,
Um, but I will caveat all of that with I never planned to be a CISO. It wasn't a career goal. So yeah, but that's how I went about it. I just sort of said yes to the right things, learned a lot, and ended up here.
I was
I'm
gonna say, so
satisfied and
how did it
blasé.
happen then? Is it literally just one door opened and then another door opened? Is that how it
Uh,
happened?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I've done some weird and wonderful things, and I have to admit, I didn't go straight up. My career was, I suppose, a little bit fragmented. But yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have got here quite young, and as such, I can do another evolution of my career. So yeah, it's good.
Brilliant.
Um, I've got the war wounds, but not necessarily all of them bad.
Fantastic. No, absolutely. You got the battle scars and that's just what experience is, isn't it, at the end of the day? So no, really good. And sorry, I have got one last question for you before we'll wrap up. And is what do you sort of foresee the biggest threat to the role of the CISO actually being them?
Ourselves.
Okay.
So there's a lot of conversations about burnout and mental health issues and um, I don't say a lack of resilience because actually most of the CISOs I know are super resilient, but I do think some of that is coming from ourselves. and we are not learning from the other C-suite of this is my resource, this is what you've given me, this is what you can get.
Yep.
Because of the extra burden that's put on us, and that we do want to be successful, and sometimes the incidents happening against us are seen as us being unsuccessful. I do think we put an extra load on ourselves as much as the company's putting an extra load on ourselves.
Mm.
And I think until we learn how to balance our own resilience with what the business needs, with what the business can give us, we will continue to burn ourselves out.
Yeah. No, absolutely, I agree. And it all sort of comes down to, yeah, that sort of self-awareness. It's been like, look, I need to separate this now because it's starting to have a detrimental effect. But again, that self-awareness can only be instilled, yes, internally, but the right leadership and the right organization that is like, look, we know that security is it's a hard gig, and we want to work with you. We don't want you, and security only wants to work with the organization. It's not there to catch you out. People think that, oh, these phishing scams, ha, I caught you out. It's not that. It's like we want to work in unison. But that all comes from education. And if an organization is ready to be educated about security, then that's half the battle, because then you're not fighting an uphill battle. But if they've just been brought in to do security because an incident's happened or they have to pass a certain audit, and they only see it as a hurdle, then the personnel working in the security team will constantly be fighting that battle and feel like outsiders, and as such might, be a result of burnout because it's the wrong organizational culture towards security. So it's a terrific point that you made, Amy.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, if anybody has any questions that Amy has raised today, or would like to have a chat with Amy about her part-time CISO services, then I'll be sure to put her information down below. But once again, I just wanted to extend the thanks to Amy for coming on the Security Space Podcast.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, guys.